Okay, I'd like to call, or it started here. This is the Committee on Agriculture, Water, and Energy Sustainability, and this is the 12th session, and we're here in Kona, and I'd like to first introduce the other members of the council. On the far left, we've got Councilmember Gregor Iligan, and Councilmember Kern, and Councilmember Kanuha, and Councilmember Karen Eoff, and Chair Yoshimoto is not here due to illness, and then Councilmember Brenda Ford, and she indicated she would not be here till 11, and we'll find out at 11 what her issue is. And then we have Councilmember Val Poindexter, and on my right is Councilmember Fresh Onishi, and I'm Chair Margaret Willey. So I'd like to call this to order, but first let me just say, everybody make sure your cell phones are off and or on vibration and any other noisy instruments. Okay, so I'd like to call for public statements. And so I've got Peter Fame, would you like to come up here? And Stephen Bowles, would you come up, also come up and sit with him? And while you're doing that, I just want to run around the different sites and see who we have to speak at the other locations. Okay, North Kohala. Do we have any members of the public there?
Good morning, Chair. We do not have any testifiers for your committee.
Okay, and is Keahou on next? Do we have, Fortune. Any testifiers?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Madam Chair. We have no testifiers here in Keahou this morning.
Okay, how about Pahoa?
Good morning, Madam Chair. There are no testifiers here in Pahoa.
And Hilo?
Good morning. We have 3 testifiers in Hilo.
Okay, and Waimea?
Good morning, Madam Chair. We have no testifiers today. Thank you.
Okie doke. Okay, so let's start here with Peter, and if you'd introduce yourself and talk about what your background and where you're from so people get an idea of who you are, and then you have 3 minutes to testify. And I think there'll be, is there a bell or something at 2.5, or what is the deal on that?
I can ring the bell at 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay, so he'll give you, then you have 30 seconds to wind up. Okay, thank you. And do you have your button pressed on so that it's green there? Okay, so just talk. That looks good. Go ahead.
Green. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Aloha, Chairwoman Wiley and community members. My name is Peter Fahmy, and I work for the National Park Service as an advisor on water rights and water resource issues. I have worked also as a water rights attorney for over 25 years, first for the state of Colorado and then for the National Park Service. I'm delighted to be here today to listen to Mr. Young's presentation and to follow your earnest deliberations regarding your county's stewardship of its unique cultural and natural resources. Having had the distinct pleasure of watching the webcast of your last meeting on this matter, I came away gratified by the deep level of engagement of this entire council in this important matter of public policy. In your role as crafters of the county's future, I know that you confront a vast assortment of important public policy challenges. Yet, I would venture to say that there are few issues that are more important to a community than the security of its water resources and the ability of those resources to meet the economic, social, environmental, and cultural needs of the community. In my experience, the issue of water security has become increasingly urgent given the probability of changes, man-made or otherwise, in the long-term weather patterns and sea levels. This sense of urgency spans the globe, prompting even local decision makers, such as a city councilman in Fort Collins, Colorado, to question that city's water carrying capacity. To the first Hawaiians, the necessity of managing an island's water resources to ensure water security was self-evident. As successors to the resourceful former inhabitants of Keahou National Historical Park, the National Park Service seeks to honor their wisdom by working with all interested parties, businesses, organizations to strengthen the water security of this special part of Kona. The citizens of Hawaii County recognized the importance of this task when they voted to approve an amendment to the county's charter that mandated the development and use of its water resources in a manner consistent with the protection of the county's public trust resources. Of course, an essential component of promoting water security is the precautionary principle. This proactive approach to safeguarding water resources was stressed by the Hawaii Supreme Court when it declared, quote, where scientific evidence is preliminary and not yet conclusive regarding the management of freshwater resources, which are part of the public trust, it is prudent to adopt precautionary principles in protecting the resource. This admonition guides the National Park Service's management of all the resources in its care. The National Park Service, like this council, is a guardian of the irreplaceable cultural and natural resources. Thank you for your time and attention. Oh, no. I'm sorry. Okay. So, thank you for allowing for the time and attention.
I'm glad he couldn't do it.
Yeah, pull the mic a little bit closer.
Good morning, Chairman, Chairperson Willie, and committee members. Aloha, my name is Steve Bowles, and I'm a principal owner of Waimea Water Services, LLC, a consulting and management firm. I'm a professional groundwater geologist. As such, I'm a resource advocate. My role is to continuously study our water resources and recommend the best possible management practices to those who develop and use these resources. My clients and constituency are all of you. Public, private, corporate, individual, state, and local government. My experience on the island of Hawaii spans 54 years of direct observation and measurement. My career on Hawaii Island began in 1960. I first worked in the Kona area in the early 70s and was the original proponent of developing high elevation wells to serve North Kona as part of then the Keahou to Kailua community plan, which we affectionately called the K-to-K plan. That was the original plan for the development of North Kona. My work was based on a total knowledge of 2 brackish water wells that existed at the time we began the work. One next to Kealakahi Intermediate School, which turned out to be very brackish and was abandoned. A second one up on Kona Palisades, which also proved to be brackish and was abandoned. At least the North Kona, the Palisades one still exists, but they are not used. Water supply had previously been imported from the Keahou region. Mauka well drilling led to the discovery of high-level groundwater resources with which to diversify and improve our knowledge to better serve the growing population. In the course of this high-level development, we have better learned about our geologic structures, rainfall, runoff, and brackish resources. This knowledge has been presented and discussed through the auspices of the Kona Water Roundtable, made available to anybody who wanted to attend, and all of the important data collected is furnished to the State Commission on Water Resource Management. Knowledge of these resources has supported our population needs, yet we see no significant changes to the resources near shore. We cannot sleep in complacency, nor should we believe that we are damaging our resources. The Kona region is in an early phase of change and exploration. We need to be alert, but not make premature decisions. I believe that, let me finish my last two paragraphs, please. I believe the County of Hawaii and its people can and should be responsible stewards of their own resources. Designation of the Keahou aquifer system will remove that option. You will be subjected to the decisions of the Commission on Water Resource Management and contested case hearings. You will not have the option of directing your own outcomes. While some are promoting designation, we should prefer to see these decisions based on knowledge and adapt and change as is needed. Some believe change is negative. Our water resources are strong and renewable. They are not in a crisis as some might believe.
Okay, I'm going to need to, I think that did pretty good.
Please work together in solving this.
Thank you. Hilo, would you bring forward two of your testifiers? And while that is going on, Jeff Zimfer and Janice, please come up. And we'll go to Hilo first.
Yes, Madam Chair, our first testifier here in Hilo is Deborah Ward. She's here in support of Communication 721.
Aloha and good morning, Chairman Willie and members of the County Council. My name is Deborah Ward, and I'm a member of the Mokoloa Group of Sierra Club Hawaii Chapter. Sierra Club members and I were pleased to hear the Water Commission's presentation on February 4th and the National Parks presentation on March 18th. We've reviewed the PowerPoint materials to be presented by Mr. Peter Young today. We are concerned that Mr. Young, who over the years has worn many hats, is presented to you as the past chair of the Water Commission by virtue of his chairmanship at DLNR when he was appointed by Governor Linda Lingle. We would respectfully point out that Mr. Young has held several public roles, but his overriding interest has been 30 years in private real estate related businesses, including sales, market analysis, and appraisal. He's currently president of Ho'okuleane LLC, which is a real estate planning and environmental consultancy. He represents grandiose development interests and is not unbiased. His clients include those who would be seeking expanded development Malka of the National Park, and his presentation reflects his bias. Sierra Club members fully support the designation of the Keahou aquifer system as a groundwater management area, which could strengthen the careful management of culturally and environmentally significant water resources. We believe that the county resources are severely strained, and Hawaii County Council could prudently determine that additional planning, legal, and scientific expertise could be leveraged from state resources by supporting the GMA designation. Hawaii County currently lacks these positions, and without staff support and management of the resource, shortages of potable water, expensive desalination, and serious and irreversible consequences to precious cultural natural resources could and likely will result. In contrast, the entire island of Oahu, nearly all of which is designated as a water management area for groundwater, continues to enjoy robust economic growth while leveraging the State Water Commission staff and expertise effectively. The public trust resources of water are supposed to have priority over commercial uses. However, the Water Commission can't do that without designation for groundwater. The Supreme Court has ruled that the public trust uses of water include domestic needs for the general public, environmental protection, and particularly the traditional and customary uses of Native Hawaiians. Mr. Young may tell you that the designation of this groundwater management area is not a timely issue. Others say it's a home rule issue. But as Councilwoman Ford has pointed out, there is no current plan for water use in the Keahou area, and the development is addressed on a first-come, first-served basis. It is not proactive planning and will not serve the needs of our community into the future. If the Commission designates this area, designation will not stop development.
Sorry, the timer.
Okay. So we urge the County Council to support the Water Commission. Thank you very much.
Hey, Hilo, your other testifier?
Okay, our next testifier is Mr. Dwight Vicente. He is here making comment on Communication 721.
Good morning. My name is Dwight Vicente. I'm representing the Hawaiian Kingdom. All these problems with water and comes about because of the land development, which is not based on kingdom law, nor is it under U.S. Constitution. It is all based on the Monroe Doctrine or the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. That in itself is very destructive because it was only meant to steal resources belong to native people, in this case belonging to the Hawaiian Kingdom, and they have no title to the land, no rights to the resources, whether it be water or air or any of those things, and they're trying to develop it to make a profit, land speculation. With that, I'll end with reserving the rights of this kingdom under the Queen's Protest of January 17, 1893. It has yet to make its way to the U.S. Supreme Court, Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2, original but limited jurisdiction, only over U.S. Minister Stevens. U.S. courts have no jurisdiction over this kingdom. And the other one is the Bennett Constitution, which was forced upon King Kalakaua in 1887, and the signing of the Reciprocity Treaty, which violated the U.S. Constitution. The treaty in itself is based on the Northwest Ordinance, which is unconstitutional. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff Zimfer?
Aloha, Chairwoman Willie and committee members. Mahalo for this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Jeff Zimfer, and I'm Environmental Protection Specialist at Keahou National Historical Park. I have worked on issues impacting Hawaii Island's aquatic and terrestrial ecosystems for the last 10 years. I attended last month's meeting at the County Council when the National Park Service presented background information on the petition to designate the Keahou Aquifer System a water management area. I would like to quickly update you on two items that came up during that meeting. The first item concerns where and how water-related data collected by the National Park Service and other entities in Keahou can be accessed. To begin with, water level and water quality conditions have been recorded in this area since as far back as 1963. Fortunately, much of it is available in published reports. The petition filed by the National Park Service in September 2013 cites much of the data and contains references and direct links to that data. The references and links, along with additional sources of data, can also be found on a table compiled last February by the National Park Service in response to requests for data from the Water Commission. This table has since been updated and distributed to you and other stakeholders following last month's meeting. It is now available on our park's website along with the petition. The other item I wanted to follow up on is the issue of water pollution. Our goal is to maintain and protect the ecological integrity of park waters, including ancholine pools, the fish ponds, and nearshore environment. So the mission of preserving the biological and cultural resources within the park, along with providing these resources for the public's enjoyment, can occur in perpetuity. West Hawaii's climate and geology are unique. We do not have true soils, and we are very dry, and we dispose of stormwater via dry wells. Many of the best management practices designed for other locations may not work here. We are fortunate because, unlike most of the other main Hawaiian island reef ecosystems, our reefs are relatively healthy. In order to maintain our healthy fish, plants, and wildlife, we need to fully analyze the potential impact of development, develop effective methods for non-point source pollution prevention, and devise stormwater and wastewater treatment systems that have low environmental impacts. Monitoring for early warning signs of impacts from pollution on our aquatic ecosystems will benefit all of West Hawaii. To protect the health of our waters here in West Hawaii, we need regulations that protect our aquatic ecosystems along with better enforcement of our current regulations. The National Park Service has and will continue to work with state, county, and local communities to achieve these goals.
Thank you very much. Janice, introduce yourself.
Aloha, council members. My name is Janice Paul McGlenny.
And let me just say, are you testifying to 721 and 721.1?
Yes, I'm going to speak to 721 and 721.1. I'm speaking first on behalf of the Surfrider Surfrider Foundation Kona Kaea chapter. In this testimony related to those communications, I'm testifying on behalf of the Kona Kaea chapter of the Surfrider Foundation. Ms. Poindexter, I don't know if you're listening. Our group's mission is to protect and enjoy our oceans, waves, and beaches. In accordance with that mission, the National Park Service and our group agree that there is a need to most carefully manage Kona's water resources and public trust uses for now and for far into the future. We believe that any opportunity to better care for our aquifer and nearshore waters in science-based ways that take all stakeholders into consideration should be given a fair shot at review and discussion. In addition to being dependent upon a clean aquifer and seas in the ways that all humans do, our members rely upon the region's clean, safe water sources for recreational, cultural, spiritual, and subsistence reasons as well. We ask that this council give its support for the designation process for the Keahou Aquifer System groundwater management area to continue. Everyone can benefit by giving ample opportunity to community groups like ours and the general public to take part in such an important process, and most important, allowing the time for the best science to emerge through the National Park Service and other sources. We would also ask that the decision-making hearing of the State Commission on Water Resource Management, where this petition and designation will be finally decided, be held in Kona to provide as much opportunity as possible for those most directly affected by the designation to take part. In closing, our group supports this effort to better understand, protect, and allocate water for the long-term sustainable benefit of future generations. We hope that council members will support and allow this process to proceed as requested by the National Park Service. My testimony, again, to Communication 721 and 721.1. This testimony is my personal testimony. And I want to make sure that everybody gets that. The first testimony was for the Surfrider Foundation, and this is strictly me. I'm now speaking to those communications, and I want it to be noted, as I said, that in the following statement, I'm speaking totally separately from representation of Surfrider. I appreciate all the work the National Park Service has done on behalf of the public in this and other issues, and I'm in 100% support of their water designation petition. I can't imagine why anyone on this committee wouldn't agree that this process should be allowed to proceed regardless of the opinion on the validity of the petition. While I'm extremely interested and supportive of this petition, I hope this committee will enlighten the public as to the mechanism for individuals to get permission to do a presentation against a proposal in which they're supposedly not directly involved, at least not in any stated way. Members of the public get only 3 minutes to speak on a specific topic, and only, it seems, when that topic is presented in the form of a reso or ordinance. This and other councils have generally stuck to this rule to the point of distraction, no matter how important the topic is or how expert a testifier may be. In 30 years of attending county council meetings, I can't remember giving testimony in response to a presentation like this, nor most certainly being allowed to provide one myself, even though I've been involved in and even spearheaded land use campaigns that were critical and of huge interest to my community. I've seen experts fly all the way from the mainland to testify and be told they only have 3 minutes. What's worrisome is that Mr. Young's name is listed as creator of the EIS for a huge development called Keahou, which includes several wells, thousands of homes, and extensive commercial industrial buildings, all proposed to be built directly, above directly Malka of Keahou National Park. This petition designation does not propose, nor would it stop development, even though by the preemptive sky is falling presentations being given here and in as many venues as possible by large landowners and their consultants, you'd think it was falling for them and all of us. Taking care of the quality of our water supply should be as high a priority for landowners, their consultants, and developers as for the public, since it will not only affect the lives of every resident, including them, but surely make or break their bottom line. Since it's not the kuleana of the county's water department to have a deep understanding of the aquifer, but only to distribute the water of our region, it's so important that the information being presented with this petition be complete and considered as fully as possible by all stakeholders to have the greatest understanding possible of our region's aquifer. In addition to the expert, scientifically based and compelling information presented by National Park Service, I understand there's another study related to the petition coming out later this year. This only adds to the need for you to allow the petition process to move forward and unhindered by Peter Young, his potential or existing clients, QLT, or others. Aside from supporting the petitioning process, I hope that you'll ask the State Commission on Water Resources to hold its decision-making meeting in Kona so that the public can have the greatest opportunity to take part. Mahalo very much for letting me speak today.
Thank you, Janice. Okay, is there one more speaker in Hilo?
Yes, our last testifier here is Nelson Ho. He is here to speak in support of and to make comment on Communication 721.
Well, before he begins, let me just ask, Ken Melrose, would you come up, and Riley Smith? Okay, go right ahead. Hilo.
Aloha, council members. You have the Sierra Club testimony before you. I would like to focus on your actions, the council actions. And I would urge you to fulfill a small but important action on this matter. You have enough experience on the council to see that there are many large problems that you have to grapple with. And you also are aware that if they were addressed in a timely manner with the appropriate actions in prior years by prior decision makers, that the solution would have been more logically reached and dealt with, and the problem wouldn't be so bad so many years down the road. I would posit to you that that is what is happening now. The National Park Service has signaled the community and the state that there are future problems that legitimately need to be addressed. And there's been years of ad hoc efforts that have gotten nowhere. So I believe the Park Service has taken an important step to legally and rationally address this problem before too many oxes are involved in the field and getting gored. So
of the general plan, and the colored circles, pink and blue, indicate the locations roughly of the transit-oriented developments of the Kona Community Development Plan, and the green outline is a national park. You can see that designating that aquifer has a dramatic effect on the community's wish to focus its development within the urban core of Kona. And I ask that the council not support the petition, not go on record in support of the petition, and support the community that came up with its land use plan. Thank you.
Okay.
Morning, council members. You should have a copy of my testimony in front of you, so I'll just kind of paraphrase it. My name is Riley, Chair Willie, Vice Chair Poindexter, council members. My name is Riley Smith. I'm the president of Lanihaw Properties. I'm providing testimony concerning Communication 721 on your agenda today. I'm also the CEO for the combined family enterprise that includes Palani Ranch. We pasture 10,000 acres in North Kona in the Mauka lands of Honokohau, Kamalumalu, and Pohoihoi. We've been stewards of the land in North Kona since the early 1900s, and we used to own the Ahupua'a of Honokohau, which included the portion that was sold to the federal government for the Koloko Honokohau National Park. I would like to share my thoughts on the National Park Service efforts to designate the Keahou aquifer. I attended your meeting that was held on February 18th, both at the park and it reconvened up here after. And some time ago, and I listened to the testimony from Jonathan Schur, Paula Cotillo, their hydrologist, and Tammy Duchesne, their superintendent. Most of them are here today. I was concerned with the statement they made about that they share their data with you folks, because they hadn't up until that day. After a water board meeting the week later, they were again asked that, could we have the information? They provided it the next day, okay? As a follow-up, Ken Melrose and I are on the Kona CDP Action Committee Subcommittee on Water. We met with the National Park a year ago in January 2013. At that time, we met with some of the same individuals, Jonathan Schur, Paula Cotillo, their hydrologist, Sally Beavers, Jeff Zimfer, and Kathy Billings, who is a former superintendent. During this meeting, I asked them if they would share the information with us that they use in their public presentations that they've been citing since 2008. Paula's response to that meeting was that they had 2 ongoing studies and that they hadn't calibrated all their data, so they are not able to share it with us. Again, as I mentioned, when we had the water board meeting on February 25th, and I again asked them to share the data, the next day they provided me with a 3-page listing of various reports and studies that have been done. I still have not received the baseline water quality data that I have again asked for on March 11th. Jeff Zimfer has confirmed on March 13th that he would get back to me. I'm assuming that if he's saying that he's going to get back to me, that I haven't got the information yet. So again, I just question the accuracy of their statements when they say they've provided information that I don't have.
Okay, I want to also welcome our council member, Brenda Ford, Kona, and she's getting ready. What? Okay. And I'm not sure what happened to Councilmember Fresh-Onishi. He seems to have left. I don't know whether Jeanette, Jeanette, do you know where Fresh has disappeared to? Okay. But Chuck Flaherty, can you come forward? And I apologize for not having all of the members here present, but thank you for being here. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. I'm here, my name is Charles Flaherty. I'm here representing the Kona Hawaiian Civic Club, which was involved in the creation of the National Historical Park, has been involved in the issues of sustainability, Hawaiian culture, environment, because those are all connected. There's no way to separate Hawaiian traditional and customary practices in a healthy environment. I provided written testimony that included the resolution that was passed at the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs National Convention in 2011, asking the state and county to protect Kona's freshwater aquifers. And so we were very grateful when the National Park Service came forward and made this petition, because it does reflect a unanimous decision of almost 400 delegates at the National Convention of Native Hawaiians in 2011. With regard to some of the statements that have been made, I am unaware of any water subcommittee of the Kona Community Development Plan Action Committee. There is none listed on the agendas. There's been no discussion. There's been lots of discussion about roads, priorities about roads. My testimony before the Action Committee has brought up the issue of the fact that we have a sewage issue with the Keahou wastewater treatment plant, which is over capacity and is dumping its wastewater into a pit. There's also issues with Nelha with wastewater being dumped into pits. As far as data, the County of Hawaii Planning Department receives all of the water quality monitoring reports from all of the SMA permittees. They are there. They were studied in 2006. The County of Hawaii actually hired the University of Hilo to do a study, and they found that our waters were on the verge, maybe on the verge of extreme environmental degradation, similar to what we're seeing in West Maui. In addition to that, you can do a Google search on the internet, Kona Water Quality Studies or West Hawaii Water Quality Studies, and you'll find all of the reports that have been requested of the National Park Service right there online. So I would suggest that some of the representations that are being made to you are not exactly accurate. Thank you very much.
And are there any other public statements from any other sites? Seeing none, I'm going to close public testimony and move on. Stuart, our clerk, if you could read in the next communication.
Communication 721, presentation by Peter Young, former chair of the Commission on Water Resource Management, on the process of obtaining a water management area designation for the Keahou Aquifer System. From Councilmember Drew Kanuha, dated February 25th, 2014, and Communication 721.1 from Councilmember Drew Mamo Kanuha, dated March 10, 2014, submitting water management area designation PowerPoint presentation materials by Mr. Peter Young.
Mr. Young, and as I...
Madam Chair?
Yeah?
May I move to close file on communications 721 and 721.1?
Second? Okay, thank you. Mr. Young, and
Madam Chair,
yes,
excuse me for interrupting, point of order. I have to express this concern. I'm not going to try to stop what's going on, but I think the presentation that we're about to hear is unfair to all the testifiers who only gave a 3-minute testimony before I got here. I just want to say that I think this is not appropriate, but I'm just want to get that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. And on that point, I did speak to Mr. Young, and I asked him to focus on that what he's here to do is a presentation on the process of obtaining a water management area designation. That's the focus of what you're here to do, not to be doing your public testimony, pro or con. So we'll proceed.
Yeah, and as we discussed, there likely are going to be some comments about some of the information that has been presented and clarifying that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify. As noted by some, one of the hats that I wear in life now is as a planning consultant and a general consultant. And right now I am representing the Queen Liliuokalani Trust and Koloko Makai in this area. I'm also a former deputy managing director for Hawaii County, so I do understand county processes. And I am the former chair of the Commission on Water Resource Management, as well as the director and chair of the Department and Board of Land and Natural Resources. It was from some prior presentations that were made that caused me to want to share some additional information with you about what happens in the process and be maybe a little more direct than some have been about what the impacts are. An overarching statement needs to be made that I believe no one wants to harm the natural and cultural resources in the area. While we hear many times the national park seems to be the leader of that type of thing, I would agree. They probably don't want to harm the resources. I don't think this county council wants to harm the resources. I don't want the resources to be harmed. The people that I have seen and dealt with, nobody has ever said, you know, we're going to do everything for the money, we're going to harm the resources, and the future is not an issue. So I think we need to move beyond that kind of position on how people feel about the resources. And this is not about the national park. Water management designation is not about a particular landowner. It is about an impact to a resource. So while it may seem to a lot of people that this is about the national park, it's not. And actually, the people that I have talked to, I mean, they like the national park. It is a good neighbor in the community. It's an important
resource for the people. It's important recreational, and hopefully in the future some great cultural and historical opportunities as well. So this is not about the park. This is a slide you guys saw before. It's from the national park, and what they've done is they've highlighted the word may and shall. And on several instances they said, if there may be a problem, then the commission shall designate. This is the law that talks about designation. 174C is the Hawaii Revised Statute, and this is the section where it talks about designation. What they have not said, and what I think you really need to understand, is the criteria for designation is not that something may happen, some arbitrary may. It's after the commission will make a reasonable determination after conducting scientific investigations and research. So it's not an arbitrary may, or if it may, it is it reasonable that it may happen, and is it based on science? So that becomes one of the overarching themes about this discussion we need to keep in context. After that the commission will make a reasonable determination after conducting research and other scientific investigations. Many of the presentations to you have suggested that this is only one more permit. It's not that big a deal. This is a big deal. You guys need to understand, this is a very important big deal. It is a change of jurisdiction. It is a suggestion that there's a problem, and the commission has the obligation that if they find that there is a problem, then they shall designate. But it is unfair to downplay the impacts of designation. One of the big deals is, whether you have water now or not, you have to apply for the water in the future. There's a priority. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but there is a priority, and there's also an existing use versus a new use. There was some discussion and questions that people had to people that were testifying, well, what's an existing use and what's a new use? An existing use is if you're using the water. If you're not using the water, you're going to be a new use. The reason that's important, and it will come important, it becomes important really with the Kona Community Development Plan, which I'll talk about later. What's important is that new users don't get in line until after the existing users are permitted. The county's Department of Water Supply has to apply. The second paragraph is as profound as the first. There is no, and someone, it's kind of like, oh yeah, it's just another permit. No, there is no guarantee that anyone will get a permit. There's no guarantee. So you need to understand that kind of, this is a big deal. Everyone has to apply. So the water department, who's serving most of the people in this area, they have to apply. And there's no guarantee they're going to get the water that they need to service the people. There was a presentation, I think it was made to the Board of Water Supply. And they may have also made a comment to you guys that, well, once the commission makes its decision, well, then they'll just give that allocation to the Department of Water Supply, and they'll then be able to distribute the water. That sounds well and good, but what if the allocation that's given in the permit is less than what is being used right now? And that's a real possibility. If there is a problem, that's a real possibility. That means your county Board of Water Supply is going to be the bad guy dealing with guys who have been getting water from them and having to tell everybody you're going to get less or you're not going to get some. That's a big deal. Don't downplay this thing. And I was at the Water Commission when one of the engineers showed me this chart. This is the chart that the Water Commission says on how to get a water use permit in the designation process. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't look like a simple one permit to be added to the system. Now, granted, it's an engineer who likes to do stuff, but they have indicated all these kinds of things. It's a complicated process. What you have not been told is that every permit application is subject to a contested case hearing. You've not been told that. There's been kind of comment on it, but no one said directly to you, every permit, the permit to the Board of Water Supply is subject to a contested case hearing. Now, what does that mean? That's an administrative trial. The commission can be the hearing officer, or more typically, they hire a hearing officer. The parties, whoever they are, typically the applicant, and maybe other people who intervene. They typically hire attorneys, they hire consultants, and it's a long process. An example, Keahou Aquifer. Somebody said, well, this is Keahou Aquifer. It's like Keahou Aquifer. Why don't we just, Keahou was designated. Why not Keahou? Well, Keahou was designated because there's an automatic trigger. If the extraction is greater than 90% of the sustainable yield, you must designate. The 12-month moving average of Keahou Aquifer exceeded 90% of the sustainable yield, and in summer of 2003, Keahou was designated. I was there. I was chair of the commission. Summer 2003, every permit request was subject to a contested case hearing. Every one. The first permit to be approved, which everyone agrees was not that big a deal. It took over 2 years to issue the permit to that one that wasn't a big deal. Maui Board of Water Supply today, now remember that was Water Supply today, has 2 permits that have not been issued, that are still subject to the contested case hearing, that total 2.3 million gallons a day, of a total withdrawal of 18 million gallons a day. It's still not issued for those 2 permits. That's the reality of this simple process of it's only one more permit. The reality is, no one's guaranteed, everyone has to apply, they're all subject to a contested case hearing, and they take years to process. You need to understand, this is a big deal. What we haven't heard yet, but as some people have experienced, is that the national park gets involved with everything now. There's a pump installation permit that was for maybe the Lanihau well. It might have been some other well. A typical administrative process. They intervened on that. No one has asked the national park, are you going to intervene on the water permit applications if the Keahou Aquifer system area is designated? That's a fair question to ask. Their pattern has been to intervene in everything, to get involved in everything. So we can probably expect at least the national park is going to be an intervener in and request a contested case in every application in the Keahou Aquifer system area. But you might want to ask them. Somebody said we need to plan the resources. This is a diagram that the Commission puts out. It illustrates what makes up the Hawaii Water Plan. Water is one of, if not the only resource that is subject to legislative requirement for planning and protection. The planning for water is so complex that it is done by multiple agencies and levels of government, and it's published in multiple volumes. The Water Commission prepares the Water Resource Protection Plan. It was adopted in June 2008. It's under review and update right now. All of the plans get adopted, they get updated on a regular basis. So the Water Resource Protection Plan is done by the Water Commission. The Department of Health prepares a water quality plan. This shows 1990, I believe. I don't know the status of that one. So we got Water Commission, we got Department of Health. The State Water Projects Plan is done by the Engineering Division of the Department of Land and Natural Resources. They contact every state agency and ask them, what are your water needs in the future? What are your water needs now? What are your water needs in the future? What designation can do in Keahou is impact the Hawaii Community College at Palamanui. They are not an existing water user, they're a planned use. Designation could impact them. NELHA, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the deep sea water that's coming up is not the only water that NELHA uses. They're one of the largest freshwater users on the island. NELHA could be impacted by another state agency that impacted if there's designation. Kona International Airport. It only has an existing use right now. If it wants to expand, and it plans to expand, it is subject, if designation happens, it's going to be a new user for that new water, and it's going to get in the back of the line. Some people say this isn't going to impact development. You need to understand, an existing user needs to apply, they're not guaranteed, and any new user, that's anyone who's not using water now, is at the end of the line. Affordable housing that's not built, end of the line. The new hospital at the end of the line. Any new schools or any new parks. The Department of Agriculture prepares an agricultural water use and development plan. So it addresses agricultural needs across the state. And then each county prepares their own water use and development plan. Not only is each county water use and development plan passed by its Board of Water, it is passed by the County Council and it as an ordinance, and it is passed by the Water Commission. You guys approved that plan. So, the claim is withdrawing groundwater purportedly causes harm. National Park repeatedly cites this USGS Oki report, the 1999 report. More of a model rather than a report. What you've not been told about what that report says is the model using study cannot predict the distribution of salinity within the aquifer and is not capable of predicting water quality changes in the park. The plan that they say you ought to rely on tells you it can't do that. It says more than that as well. I'll just get to the bottom one. The model should not be viewed as a highly accurate tool to predict local scale changes because of the uncertainty of the hydrologic connectivity distribution in the model. It can't tell you the withdrawal is going to have the impact that it's purportedly supposed to tell you. This is another one that really gets me. And I'm not a hydrologist, but remember, the decision on this needs to be a reasonable determination. Here's the airport, here's Kailua, here's Keahou, here's Kealakekua Bay, here's KA well D. There's actually 4 wells in KA. A, B, C are down here, D is up here. The model says if you withdraw water from KAD, you will pull some of the fresh water away from the Ankeline ponds in the national park. Now, I'm not a hydrologist, but that's 18.3 miles from there to there. It does not seem reasonable that a withdrawal in KA is going to have any impact at the national park. Yet that is what the model purports to show. And I was debating how much we're going to get into sustainable yield, but I think you need to understand some of the numbers. Some people may get the wrong impression that we're running out of water, and that's why we need to do this. Picture all the water. Say, we got all the water, and we got the rain falling. That's the recharge. What the Commission does is establish sustainable yield. Sustainable yield is a portion of the water and a portion of the recharge. In this case, it's 44% in Keahou. It's set at different areas based on what they believe the aquifer to be. There's reasons to believe that the sustainable yield in Keahou should be increased because there's a lot of high-level water, about 62%, when they first thought it was all basal when they set the 44% number. And in addition, there's a recharge study that was done in 2011 that says the recharge ought to be increased by 77%. So, not to get in the weeds on what should the sustainable yield be, what does it mean? So, we have 100% of the water. 44% is called the sustainable yield. The withdrawals are all computed against only the sustainable yield. The simple math is 44% is subject to withdrawal. That means 56% is out there, not to be withdrawn. It's still going to be out there. It's still going to be flowing through. It's going to be part of the basal lens. It's going to be part of the high-level water, but not part of the computation for sustainable yield. Sustainable yield is only part of that 44%. Right now, they're withdrawing about 12.2 million gallons a day. That's 32% of sustainable yield. If you do the math, what is being withdrawn right now represents approximately 15% of all the water. We don't have a water shortage problem. We are at 32% of sustainable yield. The law says you shall mandate at 90%. We're not even halfway there. It's not a water shortage issue. The Water Use and Development Plan for 2025, that's a planning horizon because it matches the general plan, is 18.6 million gallons per day. 18.6 million gallons per day is 49% of sustainable yield. In 2025, the year 2025, the estimated withdrawal from the whole Keahou aquifer system area is only 22% of all the water that's there. And it's only 49% of the sustainable yield, not anywhere close to automatic designation or any kind of reasonable designation. Something that the National Park and others bring up all the time is, well, what about drought and climate change? The USGS study in 2011, when they computed the sustainable yield that said that the sustainable yield, the recharge should be increased by 77%, said drought is already taken into consideration. It's already computed into that, and climate change is already computed into that. Those are non-issues. They are brought and included within the estimates for recharge. So here's a picture of a portion of North Kona. There's a national park. These dots are high-level wells. There's some brackish wells over here. There's some brackish wells over here. This is a representation of the wells that exist in this area right now. As you can see, National Park, like everybody else along the coast, is below the various well fields. A question we have not yet had answered is what has happened since 1978 when the park was designated? What has happened to the natural and cultural resources within the national park? That's a fair question to ask. This is a summary of some of the wells that were right above the park. The parentheses are the year that the wells were put in, and these are the elevation. About the top 10 are the ones directly above the park. Another legitimate question to ask is, what has happened since the first wells in 1990 and the subsequent ones? What has happened to the natural and cultural resources in the park since they started withdrawing millions of gallons a day since 1990? That's a legitimate question to ask. One of the park studies, which I don't believe was included in the list of studies that Riley Smith had mentioned, says, overall, the available water quality data and the apparently good condition of associated aquatic ecosystems suggest that park waters probably are in relatively good condition. 2005. You haven't been told that. We were all told in the petition that said, according to the 2010 Water Use and Development Plan, land use phase projections of water demand exceed the sustainable yield of the Keahou aquifer system by over 600%. That is not what the plan says. The plan is projecting water use by the Department of Water Supply of 15.8 in 2025, and when you include all water, it's 18.6 in 2025. And we already heard 18.6 is 49% of sustainable yield. It's not 600%. We need to get off of those extreme kind of discussions, and let's start talking about what's really happening. Data. In 1994, the National Park adopted a general management plan. In it, it said that the park shall gather baseline data and it shall constantly monitor. You've already heard from Riley and others that that data is not being made available. We don't have the baseline data. I'm not sure it exists. And we don't have the constant monitoring data. Here's another report that wasn't on the list. It's a Geologic Resources Inventory Report 2011, one of the most recent studies from that area. None of the major ponds within the park have been studied in detail to characterize ecosystem status or link their current status to water quality, groundwater flow, groundwater residence times, or hydrologic connectivity. The National Park in its own studies is saying that they don't know what the connectivity is and what the impacts are. You weren't told this when they were made presentations to you. After years of asking for data, it was not made available. Then a list of 23 documents were listed. One of them was a petition. Of the 22, 9 of them were published in the last century. Of the 22, 9 of them weren't even specific to the park. They were reports done by Steve Bowles and Tom Nance about private development that were saying that there's not a problem. 13 reports since the park was established in 1978 was what was given to say, here's what's been studied. If you look at that 13, 3 of them were how to study and didn't include any data. What's happening elsewhere? Are there some indicators that maybe can help you make a decision? This is Hualalai. In 2005, after Hualalai Resort had restored some of its ponds and created some other pond work in the area, EPA gave them an award. for their pond work. The Hawaii Visitors Bureau gave them an award for their cultural resource protection. That's Keahou. They restored their ponds as well, and they're in good condition. This is Keahou, Hualalai, right down here. Those are golf courses, golf courses, golf courses. These are upper elevation wells, high elevation wells. The dots, you can see them, I think, in your handout, that there's other lower elevation wells. This looks just like what's happening over at the national park. There's higher elevation wells, and there's lower elevation brackish wells. Hualalai is getting an award from EPA because because their ponds are not being impacted. In fact, Hualalai is not talking traditional practices, they are doing traditional practices. What the park says they want to have at their park are ponds for their moi and mullet and opai. They're growing moi, mullet, ava, kahala, and opai in the ponds at Hualalai, and they're serving them in the restaurants at Hualalai. And they're getting awards because they've restored the ponds, and the ponds are not being impacted by the Mauka wells. There's more. Manalani. Manalani got an Earth Friendly Award in 2008. Manalani, higher wells, lower wells. Most agree that pond health in this area, these wells, higher elevation at the higher elevation and lower elevation at Manalani, Keahou, and Hualalai are not affecting their ponds. Why? Ken showed these same TOD developments. What the Kona Community Development Plan says, with the foundation of protecting the natural and cultural resources, the majority of future growth should be directed north of Kailua, with some future growth in the Kailua to Keahou area in the form of compact villages that offer increased density and mixture of homes, shops, and places to work. These are TODs. This is where there's high concentrations of residential and commercial development. And it takes into consideration the natural and cultural resources. So what about native rights? This is in the state law. It's in the water code. Traditional practices are protected. It's the law. It's not just what people want, but it's also the law. And so what's happening at the national park? Kathy Billings was then superintendent of the national park. In 2012, it was when the Water Use and Development Plan for Hawaii County was being discussed and ultimately approved by the Water Commission. She was asked by one of the commissioners, how does the national parks now facilitate traditional practices? And she responded, we're not tracking the actual use. I'm not sure the national park knows what the traditional practices that are being exercised there now. Back to the foundational thing. If there's going to be designation, it needs to be reasonably determined after conducting scientific investigations and research.
Hey, Peter, I think that I'm going to stop you there, and I'll let one of the council members be free to call you up and then give your overall opinion back.
Okay, that was my last slide anyway.
So we'll turn off the... Yeah, you can call that up. I'd like you to put it back to the slide before. Yep, thank you. And if you want to just sit there for now, so that would be fine. Okay. Yes, so I'm going to open for discussion, and Drew, would you like to start the discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Mahal for the presentation. I just wanted to, the reason I asked for the presentation in the first place was that I wanted to get a perspective of somebody who's been there in the past, who's gone through these water management designations. And Peter was a person of that, was part deal in our chairperson. He did confide in me that yes, he was representing a few of the landowners, major landowners in the Kona area. But I just wanted to make sure that a perspective was given of some past water management designations. And, him being the deal in our chair and being the chair of the Water Commission and Deputy Managing Director of Hawaii County, there was some knowledge in that I wanted to hear from what he had to say and give the council an opportunity to hear from some historical knowledge. And whether anybody agrees with what he said or not, I just wanted for that to be given out there. So that's the point I wanted to make, and the presentation I wanted to get from that. So whether anybody agrees with that or not is your opinion and the public's opinion as well. But it's for myself an ability to get the information out on that perspective. So that's kind of where I came on requesting this presentation. And yes, I understand that this is a very important deal. This is big for Kona, for the Kona area. So we all got to understand it, as Peter and everybody else, even the national parks, they understand as well that this designation is something that we really need to look forward. Not look forward, but take a deep understanding of and how we want Kona to look and how we want to manage our water resources. And this will be up to the Water Commission. It's not going to be up to us for this designation, but that's where I came with it. I'm going to yield, and any other council member can ask questions of Peter or anybody else. We have the Department of Water Supply here, and of course National Parks as well for additional comments here as well. So I'll yield this time and hear from everybody else.
Other Kona representatives, Karen, would you like the opportunity to speak next?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify for the public our practice regarding presentations and whether this was unusual or not. Our rules are pretty lax, and this term especially, we've been allowing many types of presentations. So I, for one, would like to maybe in the future clear up how presentations are given to the council. But for today, I did check with the chair as well, having earlier heard concerns, and it is up to the chairperson of the committee to approve of putting a presentation on her agenda, and so that is why we're here today. But I wanted to thank you for this information. The part that's disturbing for me right now is that because the petition was put forward, we've caused a division in our community already, and we're using the CDP as a leveraging tool. And so I'm feeling uncomfortable that we're not going to really, among this body, ever be able to really know the science. And to hear we heard from the National Park Service, which was a good presentation for us, and we were briefed by the commission about the process already. So, we've digested a lot of information, but it is unfortunate that we're now straining relationships between the federal government, the state government, and the county government, and I really am uncomfortable with that. I don't know if there's a better way to approach it where we could have trust among each other as we move forward, so some of the facts can be either agreed upon or fleshed out, not just us hearing one side and then the other. The other part that's kind of disturbing is to hear that we're dividing the Native Hawaiian community from the rest of us too. And So I'm not sure. I don't know if I like this process. I'm uncomfortable with where it's gone so far, and I'm sorry that we have to be this the focal point for it, or a leveraging place, when we're just right now trying to understand the CDP, trying to adopt changes to our code in order to implement the policies of the CDP. You know, I just find it kind of unusual that now, or the timing of this, that puts us into this position, and these relationships becoming strained. So that's all I have to say right now. But and I know information gathering is important, so I want to thank Mr. Keahou for trying to get as much information out to us.
See y'all. Ms. Ford?
I'm going to ask, thank you, I'm going to ask Mr. Young to step back. I would like to call 3 people up. Mr. Antonio, I'd like you to come up if you have some comments on this. Carino? Are you shocked that I called you? You can. I don't know what is wrong with this mic. Usually I'm booming out there. Second person is Mr. Charles Flaherty, and in the National Park System, pick one person. Karina, would you identify yourself in the microphone? Make sure it's on. The green light is bright. Identify yourself. I would like to hear your comments, because it's been implied, at least, that you're going to potentially not be able to get water. So please go ahead. You haven't talked.
Thank you, Council. My name is Carino Antonio, Manager, Chief Engineer with the Department of Water Supply. If I may go on, yeah, just for your information, I've been with the department since 1975. It's over 39 years with the department. You know, Brenda, I've seen the Keahou shaft being developed in 1977, and it once said that the shaft would provide all the water that Kona needs, and we've seen that it isn't. And since we finding out that the shaft is not what it was purported to be, the department moved ahead with development of other sources to reduce the pumpage from the shaft, and we've done that. I've seen the shaft pumpage being reduced from 6 million gallons a day down to today about 2 million gallons a day. Mind you, the chlorides in the shaft, yes, it is high. We acknowledge that. However, the chlorides is a secondary standard as far as EPA, as far as the State Department of Health. So we're still in compliance with safe drinking water standards as far as providing water to the Kona community. However, recognizing that it is a concern as far as the chlorides, we did develop additional sources on the high-level sources that was discovered over the years, and we are pumping those high-level sources. But what I really want to say today, or impress upon the audience and to you, council people, is that we, the County of Hawaii, we, the Department of Water Supply, I believe have been doing a great job as far as watching our water resource. We have levels of scrutiny that's available to us, and we've been utilizing that levels of scrutiny. I mentioned that because we, the county, are part of that scrutiny. We have the planning department. We have the planning commission. We have you guys, the county council. In addition to our county government, we have within the state the Department of Land and Natural Resources, of which the Commission on Water Resource Management is part of. They're responsible for our water resources. Within that, Dylan, there also is the State Land Use Commission. It's another level of scrutiny for decision makers as far as what developments are approved or even conditionally approved throughout our county, including Kona. We have the EPA. That's part that the Department of Health. Oh, let me step back. Yes, we answer to the Department of Health as far as water quality. If there's a problem with our water, the Department of Health will step in, and they'll tell us, Quirino, Department of Water Supply, County, you need to do certain things to come into compliance. The Department of Health answer to the EPA, a federal agency. Yes, and there's a lot of monitoring requirements that's put out there. I can say that we're more regulated than I see that bottle of water over there. We're more regulated than they are. And I can sit here and say I'm proud that, we've complied with every regulation that's put out there. And I'm comfortable that we, as a county agency, we, in collaboration with state agencies, the rest of the county departments, and even federal agencies, I'm comfortable that I can say that we've been in compliance. We've been protecting our water resource. And with that said, I would say that as far as the designation of our water resource as a water management area, at this point, because I feel strongly that we've been doing a good job, I don't think we need that designation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antonio. I would like to commend, first of all, your department, who've been there for not maybe as many years as you, but all doing a wonderful job. I especially want to thank you, since you've come on board as the chief engineer, that things have improved. I will just say I'm very impressed that you've gotten the water pumpage on the Keahou shaft down to 2 million. We don't know how many years it's going to take to get the chlorides down. And I won't give you my story, the whole thing, but remember I lived in the Keahou shaft, and I wound up in a doctor's office because of the water. Okay? So, but that was before Mr. Antonio took over. Thank you. I don't know how long it's taken. We won't go there. The one thing that I do want to talk about for just a minute is the water plan for Hawaii County, which the council passed. I did not vote for it. And the reason I didn't vote for it was because it was a snapshot in time of usage. It was no plan. They didn't give any information on the plan, and I want to know where you are in developing the plan portion of that on how you're going to take care of our water.
Brenda, thank you for that comment. I mean, the water use and development plan, yes, went through several iterations with our water board and with the county council, and finally with the Commission Water Resource Management. Yes, it may show that it's only a snapshot in time, but we continue to monitor our pumpage. We continue to provide the Commission pumpage data that they continue to compile. And yes, it was a snapshot in time, but, we continue to monitor. Yeah.
I totally understand and accept that. My question, though, is where is the second half of the plan, which is the plan, how we're going to use, control, continue to monitor? There was supposed to be a documented plan as the second half of that snapshot in time, which the majority of the council passed. When is the other half going to be completed?
Well, the thing about the water use and development plan, Brenda, it calls for an update every 5 years, yes. In a couple of years, we'll come back with additional information for updating the water use and development plan. And we, again, I say we continue to gather more information. And yeah, with the questions that's being brought up today with the from the national park, the concerns that you heard from Peter Young, the information that he provided, all of that will be taken into consideration to update our water use and development plan.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Antonio. Mr. Flaherty, I need you to keep this really short. I know you represent the Hawaiian Civic Club, and you sent testimony in which I've read, and I wasn't here in time to hear your testimony, so please do not cover anything you've already covered. Just take a couple minutes, and if you want to add anything to that.
Thank you, Mrs. Ford. My testimony was basically trying to address Mr. Young's presentation. Now that I've heard it, to be quite frank, it was very disturbing to hear. There's the good intentions of the Kona Community Development Plan, and then there's actually what's happening with it. And I was part of that plan development from the very beginning and participated. Always ask the question, how many units have already been approved? How many units have been approved, commercial, residential? To this day, in fact, just two months ago at a meeting, again, I asked, how many units have been approved? We cannot get an answer. Until we know what has already been approved, and we have a report from the county itself, from their water plan, stating that at build-out from the land use allocation guide and the general plan, that it would exceed by 400% to 500% our sustainable yield. The State Water Commission, its own report stating that the high-level wells, that the water levels are dropping, and that climate change is an issue, and that our rainfall totals are coming down. I think you're correct to ask the question, what is the plan? The sewage treatment plant, the geological survey found human pharmaceuticals, drugs in the groundwater. They found anti-corrosives, radiator fluid. They found all kinds of stuff in the water. I remember discussing with you development up at Hokulekano Ranch, where they were actually putting the sewage treatment for the homes within the boundaries that's supposed to be for the wells, and that's up Malka. And it's like, how many of those situations do we have where we've got sewage coming down into the aquifer and it's being pumped out? So I'm glad that this petition has been brought forth. In addition, I know that anybody in the community could have brought this petition, and so I'm going to be encouraging other organizations to be bringing petitions for this as well, if only to stop the attacks on the National Park Service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Flaherty. I'd like to hear from this gentleman from the Park Service. Please get the microphone really close to you. Identify yourself by name.
Certainly. My name is Peter Fahmy, and Councilwoman Ford, I gave testimony. You weren't here for that. And
so please don't repeat that testimony.
Oh, of course.
Just if you wish to comment on Mr. Young's presentation.
I'm going to say I was in agreement with Mr. Young with regards to the fact that this is a big deal, and it should be a big deal for the entire council. I mean, I was talking about water security in my testimony. It's a very important issue for all local decision makers, is the water security for their constituents, for the environment, their community. It has to be a big deal. So, and that's what I was trying to get across, that, people talk about home rule. I mean, we have home rule where I come from in Colorado, and I understand the importance of home rule. But what's key to home rule is the rule. You've got to rule, okay? You've got to have rules. You've got to exercise jurisdiction. As things currently exist, there would be no change of jurisdiction because the county doesn't have jurisdiction over the permitting of wells. That's a state function. Mr. Young was talking about how the Park Service was participating by making comments on permits for wells for pump installation. We were doing that because there is no process, there's no hearing, there's no process for looking at whether a well permit or a pump installation permit should be issued by the commission. So we make our comments. What I don't see is a framework, either on the county level or on the state level, to deal with groundwater development in this area. And that's what prompted the Park Service to file its petition. And what the Park Service is trying to do is simply trying to get a framework in place so we can look at these issues, okay? Now, the commission can decide to go forward and have a hearing on designation. At that time, everyone can come in and present evidence with regards to whether designation is warranted. What the Park Service would like to make clear is just if there's designation, it doesn't necessarily mean that the Park Service is going to come in and protest every permit for an existing use. I think sometimes people think that the Park Service units exist like islands, that they're separate and apart from the community. That is the furthest thing from the truth. The Park Service is part of the community. Its employees, its visitors stay in the community, live in the community. We work with communities to try to manage these issues in a way that fulfills the Park Service's mission and also allows the community to grow and prosper.
All right, thank you, sir. I just want to say that I was frankly disturbed. I'm not going to ask you guys any more questions, and I'm just going to make a statement. I will yield. I'm frankly, yes, Mr. Flaherty?
There was one thing I forgot to mention, and that is the statement that Mr. Young made with regard to cultural practices at the National Park Service. I would encourage all of you to go online to Keahou o Koloko Honokahau, to that website, which is the nonprofit organization that works with the National Park Service, and you will get a very good idea of the traditional and customary practices that are occurring and they wish to occur. Thank you.
I'm frankly a little disturbed at the presentation, and the reason I am is not because I think the Department of Water Supply is not doing a good job. I think they're doing an excellent job. I am concerned that we've not, as a council, we've not heard, or the public hasn't heard, how many approved permits are there floating around. And I would like to ask the Director Keahou if he will, maybe in a month or two, provide the county council with a report on the number of approvals permits, whatever you want to call them, in each district. And I'm talking geographical district. Not council district, geographical districts. I would like to see what that is. Mr. Keahou, if you want to, is that will you will do that for us? Okay, he said yes, so I'm not going to worry about that. But the tenor of this presentation is what disturbs me, because it's everybody along this entire path of the water management area is going to do their darndest to stop everything, and I don't see that as realistic. I do think that the situation is going to add another layer for sure, but I just don't see that the whole system is going to fall apart. I'm not saying I'm for or against this. I think the permit application, or whatever you did, your application for the designation is probably appropriate. I agree that the state and the county have got some agendas that I don't really understand, but I just feel that the tenor of this presentation was not as appropriate as I would have hoped. It seemed real personal. There was some good information in it, but it seemed real personal, and I feel distressed about that. So I yield.
Councilmember Poindexter would like to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Willie. I'd just like to say on the last time we had this, we had the presentation the last time from the National Park Service, and I questioned about the reports, and I just heard testimony from Mr. Smith that the reports weren't given. I don't know really what happened there, but then your testimony today kind of concerned me that basic baseline water quality data wasn't afforded to the water department, and I would think those kind of reports can be analyzed with the expertise of people in your department, Mr. Corino, is that correct? Those kind of reports are easily, somebody in your department can analyze those type of reports.
I would just say, those reports are great, but we're not the agency that would scrutinize those reports. But I would like to say that, as I'm not sure, I forgot his name, but he mentioned that there's no process for review. I'd like to point out to the council and the people in the audience that our HRS 343 process allows for review and comment by all parties that would be interested. That's basically the environmental assessment, environmental impact statement process. Every agency that wants to drill a well, or any department or individual that wants to drill a well, have to submit an environmental assessment. Any developer that goes through a permitting process, a rezoning process, land use change process, needs to file an environmental assessment. So there's that process that allows for individuals.